So unpacking whether or not these performance enhancing drugs worked, while everyone thought that I was crazy by saying, I'm not sure, what I saw in that world was more marketing than actual efficacy.
Yeah.
So the human body is so freaking complex. We're a cascade of multiple physiological systems coming together in a way that emerges as something greater than the sum of its parts. So when all of a sudden we find a mechanism or a drug to unlock one enzyme, to have one effect, to increase one aspect, such as EPO with red blood cell mass, does that really actually net out in performance when you still have to, get air through a bottleneck trachea, which then goes into bronchioles with a certain diffusion capacity, with blood that is going at a certain rate that may or may not, attach to hemoglobin, which then has to go through a complex, arterial and capillary network to a fixed number of mitochondria, which then has a fixed amount of fuel to make a certain amount of ATP, which then has to cause a muscle contract over, some ligament, over some femur length, right? The cascade of that, saying that I'm going to change one part of that and improve performance, is ludicrous. It's especially ludicrous if you think about all these complex physiological systems as a chain on a drive chain. And in that drive train, what works is harmony. What works is homeostasis. Because if I all of a sudden find a way to make one chain bigger, do I get a better, smoother drivetrain? No. I get a drivetrain that doesn't move anymore. And what I saw when I first came into the sport, which was the scariest thing for me, was I saw a lot of illness. I saw sick kids, either mentally unwell or physically unwell because of all the side effects associated with these drugs. If you believe that drugs make us better and healthier, then everyone in society would be bought into the promise of pharmaceuticals, and we would all be shooting up right now on Ozempic, right? It's
So
ludicrous.
did your refusal to consider EPO and performance enhancing drugs as the panacea, the catch-all solution for performance, did your refusal to engage in that mindset force innovation where other teams weren't forced into innovation?
Yeah, but first, let me be clear. I wasn't refusing to do it. I was fucking scared of it. It's scary. I was too chicken to be like, yeah, let's shoot you up. I mean, it's just stupid and scary. It's like, I mean, it's scary. And I was so afraid. So afraid. And so I'm like, I don't want to do that, man. Like, let's find another way to do it. Let's think about the system as a whole. And let's think about ways that you can create an improvement in a variable such that the rest of the body stays at some level of homeostasis and that we protect our health. And so, yes, I think it did. But it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard because there was so much good marketing around performance enhancing drugs at the time that the athletes were not paying attention to their real bottlenecks and to the real process of training and recovery. I think that there is this whole issue with marginal gains. But marginal gains only works if you don't have any bottlenecks. Having an improvement downstream doesn't matter if upstream you're bottlenecked by relationships, by your mental well-being, by sleep, by not getting enough good training, by a FUBAR travel schedule, right? The amount of low-hanging fruit around performance was vast and abundant during that era.
So you're not talking about a training change here. You're talking about an entire club-wide cultural change with this stuff.
That's right. I'm talking about honesty. I used to hear, and when I first came in, about what these guys were doing, like 5-day blocks and training this much volume and blah, blah, blah. But whenever I took an athlete aside and I was like, look, dude, are you really doing that? Is that how much load you're really doing? Everyone fessed up. Like, no, man, I can't do that. Just pretending. I'm just like telling guys I'm doing that because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's what the coach says I'm supposed to be doing. Everybody was lying on their training diaries about what they were doing. And in an era where you can't track the Strava, like, yeah, for sure. Everybody was like, lying. And I remember getting a bunch of the guys on Garmin together before the 2008 season as we were preparing for the Giro and then the Tour de France. And I just sat them down in a room and I said, look, I know nothing about how to get you guys ready for this. Like, I'm totally ignorant. I'm totally at a loss, but I'm good at synthesizing information. And I would love to hear in this room, we have, 20 years of doing the Tour de France between all of you. What is needed to be successful at the Tour? And when I started listening to everybody and we started being honest with each other about the training schemas, for example, with training, we learned that for the most part, we couldn't go hard for more than 2 days, maybe 3 days before we needed a day off. And that's not just riders, that's also staff, right? So we're like, all right, we're going to do 2 days on, 1 day off. And I'm like, how long can we keep this up? And it comes out, well, we could probably keep this up for 2 weeks. Okay, 2 days on, 1 day off for 2 weeks before we all take a week where we're just chilling. And then let's repeat the process. Let's do what's sustainable. And when we started doing that, that's when the athletes started getting better and stronger because we were, in balance. And the human body wants to adapt. The human body wants to get better, just needs to be stressed in an incremental and progressive way. So applying some logic to the situation and then trying to progress to a point where we could understand, well, what are the actual demands of the Tour? How many kJs are we doing on average? And is our rolling history of average coming into the Tour equivalent to that? Are we within 2 standard deviations in training load to what we're going to experience at the Tour? If not, then we don't have more than a 2% chance of finishing this thing. So let's give ourselves some probability here, right? Let's just look at it in a super simple way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please click up here. There's another video. I know that you're absolutely going and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our amazing upcoming guests.